Hello there, welcome back to Shits and Giggles, where we stand on the phrasage, if Grandma had balls, she'd be Grandpa, and if Woody Woodpecker had wooden balls, he'd be in trouble. Let us suppose that the recent alleged murders or the deaths of the anti-gravity scientists were because they found out that gravity was going to be weaponized. Let's go a little further into that. That they found out that the public-private partnership within the deep state have come to understand the natural law principles of that which we call gravity. And they will use, their intent is to use that understanding of gravity to control and make a utility out of the movement of every single man on the planet. But I have to go a little bit further into this. You know, it was said that Nikola Tesla, from what I gathered, found a way to harness the power, the electromagnetism of the rotation of the Earth in respect to the gravitational pull of the sun. Because the centrifugal force from the center of the Earth to the outer atmosphere in which we are spinning in accordance with the gravitational pull of the sun, it's immense, 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 immense power. And as I say this, it reminds me of a friend who has passed. And I like to ask this question to all the scientists and physicists out there. For my friend, I'm asking for a friend. My friend David Joe, rest in peace. He'd like to ask all the scientists, whether themselves or asking their AI GPS systems, what are the coordinates of the universe? Where is the universe? It's for my friend David Joe. So, again, this is just a supposition. I'm putting this on the table. We're not saying this is so, but suppose it is so. I think we may come closer to what the actuality is of this situation we're in. You know, how is it that we're able to stand? How is it we're able to jump and we come down? Because nature, we are in an atmosphere that is perfect naturally for human beings to stand, walk to and fro, because the gravitational phenomena, that which we call gravity, is simply a phenomena of natural law principles. Before the word, we even mention the word, that simply works. Let us suppose that, well, this is supposition, right? If you ever seen a racetrack, when we were younger, they probably still have them today, or even like electric trains. You know, they have these cars, you put the metal on the track, and then you can use a device that can have it propel around the track. Right? Now think, it's most likely, I imagine, I'm not an expert, a scientist, that there's an electromagnetic system that keeps us grounded, right, in this rotation of this, because we're really in an orb, right, and we're standing on the core of this big ball as it spins, and depending on where we're standing on the orb, we could be you know, there's a ball, someone could be standing here, but yet there's a gravitational pull that brings us the centrifugal force to the center, right? So say CERN, the particle accelerator, say this was the mad scientist's plan, right? Now, thank you, David Joe, for asking that question, where is the universe? Because it kind of pulls our focus into a larger scope, right? We have the center of the earth, we have our own sealed atmosphere, right? And then the outer space, right? And we are rotating on a planet. And there's a gravitational pull. So now they have put satellites around the orbit of the outer sphere, right? And now they have something called the CERN particle accelerator, right? That can engage with elements inside an atom. Now, say this is just for shits and giggles. Say there was an element of our world that said, you know what, gravity, that which we call gravity, is a natural resource we like to commodify. We'd like to control, and we could actually control people. And kind of, even if it was a social credit score, well, if you don't behave, we're just going to stop you in your tracks and you won't be allowed to move. We'll turn up the volume on the gravitational pull that we allow you to use, because we're going to allow you to use your gravity in the orb, and you're not going to be able to stand up today. Say that the particle accelerator from CERN was a device utilized to go directly to the core and up to every human being on the planet. Because gravity just simply works, right? And I'm not, so if they, now let's compare it to the satellites, where people like Richard Lighthouse has spoken about. Well, think about your cell phone, right? Because this really goes to like EEG heterodyning, where some suggest that every human being on the planet at the moment is being tracked on the top of their head. I'll cut in a chart that shows that. But if you've never heard any of my communication on the war on, this is part of the war on consciousness. We all have a unique brain signature, right? That's as unique as your thumbprint. Now think of your cell phone, because just speaking about this, it sounds overwhelming and sounds ridiculous, but we actually have normalized this type of engagement, right? Now say your cell phone, everybody on the planet, I'm thinking about the number of people on the planet that have their cell phones today, and they get service 24/7 as long as they have enough power on their phone. Continuous information going to and fro, coming from satellites orbiting the Earth, right? Think about that control, that power. Now the suggestion is that with the EEG heterodyning, is that the same satellites that hits the receiver transmitter in your cell phone can hit the brain signature of your mind, or of an individual's mind, and not yours, every single person on the planet. So let's go back to that racetrack or train. So say they were able to, that they found a way, right, to harness gravity, or to augment gravity for every individual on the planet, right? The particle accelerator found a way to accelerate or decelerate atoms within a human being that was related to the electromagnetic pull of gravity. And the way they are tracking human beings will be by using the satellites in the outer atmosphere and a type of triangulation, right? You have say the particle accelerator in CERN can go to the center of the Earth, right? and then go to any point, like a GPS on the planet, to connect to a human being, right? Engaging with their gravitational pull, or the gravitational force that keeps them to the Earth, and the satellites could be reading their thought patterns. Are they complying with the orders of the day from the global party, right? EEG heterodyning. The suggestion is that, like, if you understand, like, an MRI, and just think how fast. If you've never heard of any of this information, it may sound like we're in Star Wars, but this technology is here, and I'll cut in clips to prove what I'm saying to you from scientists, and even say Robert Duncan, who invented some of this technology, or the Giordano lecture, and other people.
DARPA let a couple of contracts back in 2011, 2012, the University of California, for what's called electronic telepathy, being able to monitor the brain activity of human beings at a distance and determine what they're thinking. And then on a second contract, actually developing complex signals, being able to send them into the brain of another person, literally transmit a message. This is where the technology is today.
What we're here to talk about today is the fact that the brain is and will be the 21st century battlescape in many ways. End of story. You will encounter some form of neurocognitive science that has been weaponized not only in your military career, but in your personal and professional lives. It is valid, valuable, and already in operational play. The brain is the current and future battle space. What's new about this is the in-close nature of this. Increasingly, we're not seeing these things as weapons of mass destruction against gross aspects of the population. More specifically, perhaps, might be targeting individuals on a level that allows either direct attribution or covert engagement with non-attribution. Formal definition of a weapon, probably the one that you've heard about most recently, most contemporaneously in the literature, is the possibility to use some form of directed energy to affect physiology peripherally and also to affect the physiology and health of the brain.
And this is at least 5 years ago, if not 10, with the EEG. When you go into MRI, it takes a 3D print of your body, right? But it's the electromagnetic fields. So if you could lay on that table and it pulls you into that silo where it takes this full body image, they have a 3D image of the electromagnetic fields of your body, which is your brain signature, which is unique to just you, which is your own biometric ID, right? Interesting how these things correlate. So what they're saying is that and now also understand, we're in a day where we have fiber optic cables going all around the world, and light travels through fiber optics, and that light is the conduit and carries information around the world at the speed of light. That is the same type of processes going in your brain in the neural pathways. It's similar. And as fiber optic cables carry information through light, your thoughts are traveling through the neural pathways of your brain. So what is being suggested, at the speed of light, one beam comes down and captures the symbols, or captures the information being transferred through the neural pathways, right? The signal, which is our thought. And another beam comes down and reads it. But this is happening at the speed of light, so it can read it in real time. And some say with CERN, the particle accelerator, they may actually be able to do these processes or fast. There's something faster than light. I'm not sure if this is true. These are rumors around this information, but this is a supposition. So say those scientists were killed because they understood that they were working on projects in which they had unlocked the mysteries of that which is gravity, and found out that just like everything else on this planet, they were going to use it for the subjugation of nature, right? And that they could actually control human beings' movement on the planet by controlling the gravitational pull. Now, far-fetched? I don't think it's far-fetched. This is simply a supposition. But understanding what they're doing with, say, like Giordano's, the weaponization of the neuroscience, it doesn't seem far-fetched.
In other words, what it allows us to do is assess the brain, access the brain, and affect the brain. I'll unapologetically repeat myself throughout this lecture to drive home this point with regard to these capabilities, because each and all have gravitas importance and operational leverageability. That said, what are these techniques and technologies that have rendered this capability and, if you will, geopolitical, military, and social power? Well, I have them here before you. Generalization, we could parse them down into two discrete domains. First, the assessment neurotechnologies that do exactly as the name would imply. They are based upon various tools we can use to assess those structures and functions of the brain that may be involved in those processes of cognition, emotion, and behaviors. Humans are tool users. Rarely, however, do we turn over a rock, look around a corner, or peer under the bed just to know what's under there. We use, at very, very least, the knowledge we have gained from turning the rock over and looking under the bed or around the corner. And very often those things that we find under the rock, under the bed, or around the corner become tools for us to use in a variety of other engagements. Brain science, like any other science and technology, is no different. Earlier in the day at lunch, Major and I had a conversation about the viability of different types of research. Science for science's sake. Science just to know because that's where your interests lie. Oh, look, I've been an academic for well over 4 decades. And I can tell you that that kind of research is wonderful. But when that research is generated for a purpose and when it's funded and when that purpose deals with those things that are near and dear to the health, survivability, flourishing, and protection of kith and kin, then that research is operational research that has an end goal of use.
And I would say, people who understand the story of Nikola Tesla, it said that when he passed away, first, if you're unaware, in the beginning of electricity, there was a bit of a battle between him and Edison, and they destroyed Nikola Tesla. Early on, Edison was already established, and he had an invention that Edison kind of swindled out of his hands, and he said, "Welcome to America, you're going to love their sense of humor." And then in the battle for direct current electricity, right, an alternative current to electricity, which ended up winning out, which was Tesla. Tesla was pushed out of electricity, and he was ruined. And he was given. They gave him like a lifetime room at a prominent hotel in New York City, and he fed pigeons for most of his life. But he continued to work. So what was said to had happened was that when he passed away, people from his home country and family members had come to get his belongings, and there were already people from the government in the hotel room taking information. And it is suggested that the entire digital age we are living in is from the stolen work of Nikola Tesla. And from what I understood, Tesla had come upon the ability that we could have free energy, right? That it was that we could access the energy of the gravitational spinning of the Earth through the core, and we could have free energy for everyone. But of course, we know the story where we are. So, for shits and giggles, suppose those scientists working in the anti-gravity field were killed because they actually unlocked the code, to use this language, of that which we call gravity. And think about how you stand, how you walk when we're healthy, to and fro on the planet. Would there be those who would want to put tolls on the body for every step? Look at the Fitbits. Every step you take, they're going to have count. So I suggest this is definitely something to think about and be put on our radar of these phenomena, and take into consideration the subjugation of nature and how where we are going in the world, sustainable development. They're looking to tokenize every molecule, every atom on the planet, where they can take water running down a mountain and say it's a utility service. Molecules, oxygen. They're looking to tokenize every single aspect of nature on the planet, so they can say it's a service and sell you back what is inherently yours. This is well understood if you haven't heard this. And would they do it with gravity? Take care.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose